Students, another favourite syllabus point for the examiner is this one: standardisation or adaptation of elements of the marketing mix when considering global brands. So the first thing to remember is those 4 dot points underneath, that you really only receive marks if this question is asked for your reference to the corporate slogan, product name, product features and positioning. So just remembering that standardization means that you don't change elements of the marketing mix in your expansion overseas, that there is this uniform representation of those 4 elements. Adaptation means that you change or modify particular areas of the marketing mix. So you may retain or standardize the product name, but you may choose to adapt elements of the product features because it would fit better into the market that you are moving into. And there is no rule. You could obviously do it differently depending on the needs of each individual market. Just a tip, remember that the only 4 points in the Year 12 syllabus are corporate slogan, product name, product features and positioning. Whilst it is implied that price, promotion and all the rest of the other P's from Year 11 are kind of in there, you should not specifically refer to them, as really you're not going to get any marks for them. Try and frame your response again around those 4 dot points from Year 12. So firstly, the benefits of standardization are really similar to being, the benefits of becoming a global brand. If you choose to standardize those elements of the marketing mix when expanding overseas, you are going to achieve that consistency by building that brand awareness. You are going to send the message that your brand is a successful global brand, therefore achieving that prestige factor. And you may achieve some savings because through economies of scale for the marketing, because you will hopefully be using similar tried and tested techniques as you go overseas. Adaptation, I would argue that most businesses, when expanding globally, are going to adapt some elements because not all countries are the same. Okay, most commonly, it's probably going to be elements of the product features, but really, this is why it's such a good question for the examiners, because it's really dependent on the country which the business is operating in and really the nature of the product. As it says, first dot point, all businesses, if they've done their feasibility studies right, more than likely might choose to adapt certain elements of the 4, simply because it is going to meet the needs of the market. Again, not all markets are the same. Each have different consumption patterns, different levels of income. It is highly likely that some aspects will probably change. In terms of corporate slogan or other elements of the product, often when the things don't translate from English, it doesn't go well. It could end up being a swear word. It could end up having a, contextually silly meaning. So the example often given in class is that finger licking good for KFC actually in Chinese translates to eat your fingers off. Positioning. So positioning, again, is where you fit in the market. And again, that may change depending on the status of your brand and the way your brand is seen by customers. So product name is obviously the name of the product, and it is what consumers most often identify. And it is carefully created to send that message, to tell consumers what your brand is all about. So if you get a question which asks you in the exam whether or not to standardize or adapt, clearly you have to think about the color of your brand name and your brand logo. You have to think about whether or not the actual name of the brand may be offensive, if it's easy to pronounce, because you don't want to have something which for different intonations in different countries around the world may not actually come out right. You have to consider the competition overseas and whether or not actually in that foreign market, that brand as it stands, the product name as it stands, will actually make an impression on the market and help you achieve your goals. The slogan, again, this is the one which you really have to consider what it translates to in the language of the market that you are moving into. Again, the KFC example is a really good one, and we know that corporate slogans are designed to inspire or to create an association between the consumer and the brand. Just do it, being one of the most obvious ones. Product features, I would argue, in the Year 12 syllabus, this is the biggest of the 4 because it involves pretty much most aspects of the Year 11 Ps. It could be the actual features of the product. It could be the technology involved in either the marketing, so social media, for example, or it could be e-commerce and ordering and how you go about the distribution of the product. It could be the marketing, the advertising. It could be even things like where you situate. If you choose to open a store, where is it actually going to be? Because it might be different in some markets compared to where you would actually locate your store if it was Australia. So this is a huge category. And again, this is the one that more than likely is going to be adapted most readily to suit the needs of the overseas market. Lastly, positioning. So if we are a Western brand moving overseas, potentially in the new market, we might move up higher in our positioning because we may be an aspirational Western brand. Our quality may be higher. So we would need to consider where we fit, not with the competition in the new market, what are the expectations of the consumers in the new market of us as a brand, and what are we actually trying to achieve that will impact on where we position ourselves relative to the competition. So again, this has come up a lot of times. It came up in 2024 in the short answer section, and that was interesting. It came up in 2023 in the extended response, and I think this is where it sits better. So this is the one that we are going to look at today. So in a minute, I've got the case study on the next page. If you have a copy of the 2023 exam or you would like to have a look at it online, you can obviously do that and print it off. Just pause the video. But I do have the case study on the next slide, which we're going to pause and you can have a read of it. And then you can potentially highlight or underline or do what you need to do. And then I'll show you again what my highlights are. So when you're highlighting, we are focusing on just the marketing. So the question is asking about corporate slogan, but I would argue read the case study and actually underline anything in the case study which applies to name, corporate slogan, product features, or positioning, just for practice, even though it is solely the question just for corporate slogan, just as a habit to help you getting into that process of finding the clues in the case study. Just have a look for anything that relates to standardization or adaptation of the marketing mix. So I'm going to pause now, or you can pause now whilst you have a go at that. Okay, and there we go. So just reading through it, you can see in the top second sentence there is the corporate slogan, commit to a healthy lifestyle. Yep, so we've underlined that. Then the green section, so interesting, there is no brand product name in the case study. The closest we're going to get is in yellow there. It's just simply a wellness center. So the green really represents the product features, and you can see it's a wellness place which does a range of different things, not just for fitness, but there's also, cooking and nutrition and educational courses and all the rest of it. So, this is really pitched. Its product features are that it is a one-stop shop for wellness. The purple or pink, whatever you choose, really represents positioning. So they've expanded through Australia, so they've definitely got a position in the Australian market. So it's not a startup, which is good or interesting to take into consideration. And you can see we're scrolling down there. And the other positioning aspect is really that, according to the two owners of the business, that there is a gap in the market because the competitors are resorts, not wellness centers. So, there's a difference there. So they're aiming to pitch or position their businesses, with a niche compared to the existing competition. Just that last part there, I think really, if you dig deeper into the case study, I think the owners would really like just to standardize most aspects of the marketing mix to move, because it would be easier. But the question we are responding to is at the bottom there, and you have to choose. Now, you could receive both marks, but 3 marks, whether or not you choose standardization or adaptation. You really just have to explain your thinking as to why you've chosen that aspect. Don't write about both. Okay, you're only going to get marks if you choose either standardization or adaptation of the corporate slogan. So this was the marking key from the 2023 exam. As you can see, it's pretty varied. I would argue, and I think just the language used through the marking key of the examiner is that standardisation potentially is probably the better option. You could choose adaptation, but if you really think about it, it might be a bit of a limited one in terms of your explanation if it's corporate slogan, because all you're really doing, the only reason potentially you would adjust the corporate slogan is if it didn't work because of the language, if people didn't understand it. But considering you're really probably going to try and keep most of the rest of the product features the same, if I was answering this question, I would probably go for standardization because I think it fits better with the case study. That being said, adaptation, I'm sure, because it was only worth 3 marks, there would have been lots of students who chose that and got there because you wouldn't have to included that much to actually achieve the marks. Hope that helps. Thanks.